Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices for Power, Episode 1, Charting Our New Direction. My name is Alexis Anderson Reed, she, her, hers, and I am so proud to be leading the amazing State Voices Network during this time and work alongside some of the most brilliant civic engagement leaders and organizations in the country. You can follow our work around State Voices on Twitter and on Facebook, as well as on our website, statevoices.org. So today we are kicking off our Facebook series where we'll be discussing our new strategic direction. We'll be talking about our new theory of change and all of the work our network and our partners have done in order to chart our new path to power. I'm going to be joined by some magnificent leaders today, some of the truly great people I have the opportunity to do this work with every single day. We're going to be joined by Miles Rappaport, who is the board chair of State Voices, and in his day job serves as a senior practice fellow in American democracy at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at the Harvard Kennedy School. In our second segment, we're going to be joined by State Voices Board of Directors member, as well as Executive Director of one of our affiliate tables, the Massachusetts Voter Table, Beth Wong. We're also going to be talking to the amazing Emily Zamora, who leads Silver State Voices in Nevada, as well as with the Director of Civic Engagement with our Pennsylvania Voice Table, Jasmine Rivera. But we're first going to pause and have you all check out this quick video about what we have built at State Voices so far.
We are a network of 23 state table coalitions working with hundreds of grassroots organizations to build local power, push for equitable elections, and advocate for self-determination. We reimagined our theory of change to seek to build a transformative democracy through deep partnership between national and state tables that model the multiracial, multi-ethnic, and multicultural transformation we seek. Our affiliated structure positively transforms the everyday lives of people, centers those who experience oppression, and is anchored in our commitment to building healthy collaborations. We seek to partner with supporters to distribute resources, tools, and add capacity to affiliates to ensure the work is sustainable, scalable, and impactful. Now, the State Voices Network is ready to build power in 2020 and beyond. Our collective voice is strong and steady. We're crafting a new anthem, and we will be heard. We're using our voices for power.
So thank y'all for watching that exciting video. Next, we're going to be joined by Miles Rappaport, and I have the opportunity to work alongside Miles over the last couple of years. I've learned so much from him, both about leadership in times of challenge and transition, and just learn from all of his decades-long experience as a champion for democracy. State Voices truly would not be in the position it is today without his leadership. And we're so appreciative to have him here to kick off our virtual series. So let's have Miles join us now.
Hi, Alexis.
So Miles, hi Miles, how are you doing?
All right, good. Glad to be here.
Good. So happy you're able to join us. I want to kick off a question right away to you. So you had an opportunity to be a part of this process as we are charting our new pathway to power and really focus on our new theory of change. So I want to first hear from you about how did you get involved with State Voices and join as the chair of a board, and what has made you stay on in this leadership role?
Well, I joined the board originally about 6 years ago. And actually, I was a friend, a long-standing friend of the previous director, Roger Van, and he asked me to come on the board. And I also believed thoroughly in the mission of the organization, which was to help grassroots organizations develop their power and their capacity to be involved both on an issue frame, but also in elections and voter registration. So I joined then. I became board chair about 2 years later. And, I think we realized as a board that there was a need for some transition and some moving of the organization forward. So the board kind of stepped up, as boards are supposed to do at moments like that, and worked through the transition, and we selected you as leader. And that actually goes to the next part of the question, which is, why have I stayed? I've stayed because I think you're a fabulous leader for the organization at this moment. I think you are a warm and generous and inspiring leader, and that has made me want to stay on and watch the organization as it continues to grow and develop, and stay with you through this transformation, both of the theory of change and the practice of the organization.
Thanks so much, Miles. I really, really appreciate it. So, as we we moved into this new direction, and it was really started with shifting our theory of change. And so we want to, for everybody watching out there, to actually share our new theory of change with you. You saw some of it in the video, but we want to pull it up on a slide now, and I'll just walk through it for folks. And so this was a process that we did over the course of 2019 with over 130 leaders across the country to chart our new strategic direction and really ground our new theory of change into building a truly transformative democracy through deep partnership through the national as well as through state tables, where we really believe that it's at the local level, it's at the state level, where we can be truly transforming our democracy and creating change. And that these tables, who are working with hundreds of organizations across the country, because we know none of us can do this work alone, are models of multiracial and multi-ethnic and multicultural transformation. And we have a new affiliated structure that is working to positively change the everyday lives of people, to making sure that we're centering those who are disenfranchised, who experience oppression, and is really anchored in the commitment of building healthy collaborations and being a reflection of our values. And we do this with partnering with national and local organizations, with those who are supporters to help distribute resources and make sure that folks on the ground have everything from data and technology and capacity to strategic aligned work, and to make sure that our work is sustainable and we can continue to have impact. Miles, as you hear, and you've been a part of helping to craft this new theory of change with the full network, what is the impact that you think that this will have on the larger civic engagement ecosystem?
Well, it's interesting. I think there are three things that really stand out to me in what State Voices is now doing to transform itself. And I think it is a process that is being mirrored, and it's happening all across the civic engagement structure, the democracy movement structure. And the three things are: one, the idea of building to last. I think there has been kind of a misunderstanding over many, many years in the Democratic Party, and among organizations generally, that the idea is to pour money into just election processes, whether it's nonpartisan or partisan, and we're nonpartisan, obviously. But I think that the understanding is that you need organizations on the ground that are built to last, that are not just from election to election, but really build power in communities, build the capacity of citizen leaders to speak on their own behalfs, and to really build something that is anchored 12 months a year, all year long. So that's number one. Number two, I think the understanding that you need a national and a state collaboration, a healthy one, where it's not the national organization dictating to the state organizations, but rather it's the state organizations kind of developing their own capacity, understanding the state situations, but being part of something that's larger, that has a kind of a set of unifying themes and structures to it. And I think State Voices, and you in particular, have done a terrific job of building that kind of healthy back and forth two-way communication and two-way relationship that's so important. And thirdly, the organization is clearly centering the issues of the African American community and communities of color more generally. The kind of the slogan I sort of like, I see it on network TV, so it's really getting around, is the idea that all lives can't matter unless Black lives matter. And I think that what State Voices is doing is really centering those issues, building up those communities of color around the country, in the 23 states that we have and elsewhere. And I think that's really important. And again, I think that is happening in other organizations and in other places. And I think it's an extremely, extremely healthy development. I think, I'm on two other boards, Everyday Democracy and Demos, and in both of those organizations, becoming a race forward organization, looking at the problems and the issues of the country through a racial equity and through that kind of a lens is critically important. And I think the whole society over the last 6 months has certainly been moving in that way. To be sure, there's a mean-spirited backlash to it, but I firmly believe that we shall overcome.
Thank you so much, Miles. And I think those 3 points are critical. That we have a healthy partnership and collaboration between national and states, and it has to be centered in values and deep, authentic partnership. But that, we're learning so much and being powered from the ground up. And like you said, that everyone has to be fighting back against anti-Blackness, and that we know until Black people are free, none of us are free. And then I think that, the third point you made around civic engagement, moving beyond electoral work is so important. As we have been charting our new strategic direction, we have set out to redefine civic engagement. So often people think of civic engagement as just voting. And the work of civic engagement is year-round, every single day. It's engaging people on the issues that are impacting their communities, to making sure we have safe neighborhoods, making sure that people have a living wage, that we are fighting for climate justice. And so our tables and our partners are doing that work 365 days a year. And in this moment, know that the election is critical to our long-term pathway to building power. It's, not the end, but it is a catalyst and an important moment for demonstrating our organizing. And then day after election in 2021, we're going to keep doing it, right? So, as we're talking about this, building power over the long term and what it really means to create a true multiracial democracy that's grounded in building power for Black, Indigenous, and folks of color so that we can all thrive and live in our full dignity, we're reminded, and you lifted up, the fact that we only are doing this work because of so many great organizations and the people that have come before us. And we truly are standing on the shoulder of giants. And we lost one of our true giants over the weekend, a Shiro Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who fought for gender equality and LGBTQ rights, for voting rights, for reproductive justice, for the rights of non-citizens and people with disabilities, and the list goes on. So, I know you have been doing this work, over the course of your career. So I'd love to get your insight on how do we move forward from here, with 43 days left into the election, and what can state voices and organizations across the country do to fight for a Supreme Court nomination process that is fair?
Right. Well, I think that you're absolutely right that we are standing on the shoulders of a somewhat diminutive giant in Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the work that she did fighting for all of those rights and the rights for every single human being was just extraordinary. And I think the thing that we have to do two things. One is genuinely honor her memory. Her memory, her work was inclusive, her work was expansive, her work was visionary, and we have to operate in the very same way. And I think just in terms of looking at the next 43 days, in terms of assuring a Supreme Court that really looks and feels like America and truly reflects the will of the country, I think there will be plenty of inside baseball and maneuverings in the U.S. Senate, and can they get the votes, and will it be after the election or before the election? There are all these things. But I think what is most important in a way is for the entire country what Kamala Harris called the coalition of conscience, to sort of rise up and in one voice say the Supreme Court ought to reflect the will and the view and the sense of the country moving forward, not looking backward. And I think that when you are 43 days from an election and the will of the country will be demonstrated and shown, then that ought to be respected. And I think if millions of people, in every way, whether it's sitting at the Supreme Court or writing petitions to the U.S. Senate or being in demonstrations around the country, shows its face and its determination and its willingness to look towards the future, I think that will prevail. I have the sense that will prevail.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. As we talk about people power, this is what we're talking about, right? It's that, we have, when we, are trying to hold our elected officials accountable and truly have a representative democracy, that the people are core to that. And I think that I'm seeing so many organizations come together to organize and mobilize hundreds of thousands and millions of folks. And so I think we're just going to see this huge outpouring of people crying for what is right and doing what is right and taking action. And we're going to be talking to Emily and Jasmine and Beth a little bit later on about what folks are doing on the ground to mobilize. So I just couldn't agree with you more. With our new strategic direction, and we're centering, specifically Black, Indigenous, and Latinx, and AAPI, and all people of color. Sometimes you hear folks saying and suggesting that by centering BIPOC communities, it actually means leaving white folks or non-BIPOC folks out of the work. How would you, do you think that this is the case? And how would you say that white folks and non-BIPOC allies can support with the centering of communities of color through this work?
Well, I should just say right off the bat, I do not feel that way at all. I feel like, what's happening in this country is a long overdue discussion involving everyone about the pernicious, longstanding and centrality of racism to American history. If you looked at the New York Times 1619 piece, you understand that, going back 400 years, this country was built on the backs of a system that completely devalued the humanity of African Americans. And, I think for a long time, progressive leaders, progressive organizations, progressive activists didn't fully understand. And we sort of did, because we saw the civil rights movement of the 60s and we understood those issues and the impact it had. But I don't think we fully recognized how central the race issue is. And so, there were people saying, well, it's really not about race, it's about class. And the truth is those two things are inseparable in American history and in the American presence. So what I think is really important is for organizations throughout the country, for communities that are not part of the African American community or other communities of color, to demonstrate a real sense of allyship in this moment, to say that, those issues are central to having justice for everyone. And if we have justice for everyone, we'll be able to make real progress in the country. So I feel really, really important and hopeful, that we can do this, that we can, both in the election and beyond, come together as a whole kind of American society, but understanding that unless racism is first and foremost in our minds as we attack and deal with the problems, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's economic inequality, that if we don't understand the centrality of race, we'll miss making the solutions that we need to make. So I feel very good, and I look and bringing it down a little closer to state voices. I feel like that's the way in which you're leading the organization. Not at all in a way that excludes anyone, but in a way that centers these issues and takes them forward, but brings everyone along to be supportive of them and understanding of them and having a real conversation about them. So I couldn't be happier with the way the organization is handling these issues. And I'm hopeful that the organizational democracy community out there and the broader political community will move in this direction as well. So let's celebrate ourselves together, but understand that that there's a certain universalism that also requires to put the needs of the most oppressed people first.
Thank you, Miles. I couldn't have said it better. And I want to take a moment to shout out the Movement for Black Lives, who is really leading this work, and we're learning from every single day, and all of the leaders of color and Black women that are leading all across this country. I'm so happy to be doing this work alongside you and learning from you. And this is truly a reckoning right now. And like you said, Miles, we are making progress in the present. And I'm just so happy to be doing this work alongside you, Miles, as the leader of our board and someone who I get to talk with and go to thought partnership and, to help support and, transforming state voices to make sure that we are truly on charting our pathway to power. So thank you so much for taking time to join us today. I hope everyone out there, even though we can't hear your applause, is giving your applause to Miles being our first guest on our Facebook Live series, Charting Our Path to Power. So thank you so much, Miles.
Alexis, thanks a lot.
Find Miles.
Okay, thank you for having me. And let me just say that you're earning all of the support and the appreciation that the board is giving to you. So keep it up.
Thank you. So for everyone out there, you can find Miles on Twitter. His Twitter handle is @Miles Rappaport. He's also on Facebook, and you can find out more about his work by visiting the Harvard Ash Center website, which is ash.harvard.edu. So make sure to check him out and all of the amazing work that he's doing. So we do have more show ahead, but we want to take a quick break to remind you of some of the important voter registration deadlines. And we're going to be joined by the Deputy Director of Civic Engagement with State Voices, Kara Romanek. So I'll pass it over to Kara.
Thanks so much, Alexis. That was really great to watch that conversation. Hey everyone, my name's Kara. I work with incredible grassroots groups to register voters in the communities where they organize and live. Making sure your voter registration is up to date at your current address is really crucial this year, so that you can vote in a safe way, and so that you can have the option of voting by mail if that's available to you in your state. So National Voter Registration Day is coming right up. It is September 22nd, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, at State Voices. Can you go back on the slides? I'm sorry. Thanks so much. So you can register to vote or make changes to your address at bit.ly/State Voices. You might want to take a quick screenshot or just write down this so that you can use this link and it'll take you right there. And then go forward one on the slides. Awesome. Check the registration deadlines and information for your state at vote.org, and then you can go to their voter registration deadlines. Some quick things about deadlines. So the voter registration deadlines start not next week, but the week after on October 5th and October 6th. We have many states having deadlines those days, including Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas on Monday the 5th, and then Nevada, New Mexico, and Illinois on the 6th. Some of those states, including Nevada, have different deadlines for online voter registration than paper forms. So again, go to vote.org to figure out exactly what the deadlines are in your state. Thanks so much, everybody. And I'm turning it back over to you, Alexis. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kara. And thank you for joining us and sharing those important reminders. We want to be sure that everyone is registered to vote and that you have the information that you need. So thank you so much, Kara. So when we went through our process to set forth our new strategic direction, we came up with not one, but with two theories of change. One for State Voices National, which we talked about in our first segment, and then we came up with one with our affiliated network of state tables. So the network wanted to be sure that it had its own North Star for how they want to be in partnership with organizations in the states and to ensure that they were most accountable to the work. We have over 600 organizations that sit at state tables or 23 state tables across the country, and over 800 organizations that we're working with nationally. And so we want to be sure that this theory of change and our new strategic direction is reflective of being accountable to those organizations that we work with every single day, and also, foundationally accountable to the people. And so we want to bring up a slide to bring up the affiliated network theory of change, and so that you can see how it has certain elements from the national theory of change, but has been adapted to really focus on at the state level. And so the State Voices Affiliated Network is really focused on building power for multiracial, multi-ethnic, and multicultural communities that's shared through an intersectional ideology. And so and also making sure that folks have access to everything that they need in order to have impact, from data and technology to having a coordinated organizing strategy in order to transform democracy, as well as the lives of the people that we're engaging and serving. And our commitment to transforming our democracy, right? Building this true multiracial democracy that's grounded in building power for Black, Indigenous, Latinx, AAPI, all people of color, is what unifies our affiliated structure. So I'm so happy to be able to bring on the show for the segment 3 special leaders who have been absolutely instrumental in shifting power within the State Voices Affiliated Network. They are strong women of color and are the very example of the change we want to see in the civic engagement organizing space. We have with us today, and please welcome Beth Wong, who is the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Voter Table and also is a member of our State Voices National Board of Directors. We have Emily Zamora, who's the Executive Director of Silver State Voices in Nevada, and we have Jasmine Rivera, who's the Director of Civic Engagement with the Pennsylvania Voice Table. So welcome, everyone.
Hi, Alexis.
So I'm going to Hi, how's it going? We have a lot to get to, so I'll jump in. So I'm going to kick it off with a question for all 3 of you. So what brought you to this work? And if you want to share, why have you stayed in this work? Why don't I kick it off to Jasmine first?
Sure, absolutely. So what brought me to this work is that I have always been a community organizer. I, right out of college, was organizing young people, primarily young people of color, then in the Black community in the Philadelphia area, and then the Latinx immigrant community, my community, in the Philadelphia region as well. And so when I had this opportunity to really look at how do we create change on the state level, and support basically our friends, right? After years of doing the leadership recruitment, the chapter building, in addition to running the voter registration drives and the GOTV canvases, here was an opportunity to really look at how do we all coordinate together? How do we create a progressive Pennsylvania? That's what brought me to this work, and that's what keeps me in this work, is seeing all of the amazing BIPOC leaders fighting for their communities on every level, not just when it comes to civic engagement, but also on the issues and also when it comes to leadership development. That's why here I am, my second presidential year with Pennsylvania Voice. In 2016, I was strapped in for 2020.
Woohoo! Awesome. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Same question. Beth, what brought you to this work and why are you staying in it?
It's so great to be with all of you. I first got involved in the movement for a multiracial democracy when I was a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is Alexis and my alma mater. I remember when I was in college, the legislature and Governor Walker were attacking voting rights. They were busting unions. They were cutting public education. They were gerrymandering the state in ways that made it unrecognizable. And I really understood that there was a longer term agenda that was being enacted that was taking away our voices and our votes at the same time. And so that's when I decided not to go to medical school and decided to become an organizer, something that my parents probably still haven't forgiven me for yet. And I think what really keeps me in the work is that our work is so far from being done. In Massachusetts, where I work now, our COVID deaths just surpassed 9,000 people, mostly Black and Brown people. We have the 6th worst income inequality in the country, despite, if we were a country, being the 4th wealthiest country in the entire world in Massachusetts. The average household wealth of Black families in Greater Boston is $8. Life expectancy spans 30 years within 2 miles in Boston. And there isn't enough organizing infrastructure outside of Boston, which is both the capital and the largest city. And so that's really what I am dedicated to, is ensuring that every person, especially every Black person, every Indigenous person, and every person of color in Massachusetts is able to find their voice, find their political home to enact an agenda that works for everyone.
Thank you so much, Beth, and tell your parents we owe them gratitude for dedicating your life to organizing and justice. And so we're here. We're happy that you're here with us. And Emily, I'm going to turn over to you. Same question.
Thank you so much for having me today. I think I don't really remember exactly how I got into this world. I think it's just, I don't know, I'm an Aquarius, and I think I just have that nature of like wanting to save the world, right? And just saw things not happening right in my community and figured that I needed to get involved in some shape or form. I will say, my background previously to being at Silver State Voices was mostly in Latinx and immigration organizing. And after the 2016 election, I think like many of those that were collectively across the country, but especially those in the immigration space, I felt like I couldn't get out of bed. The depression was a real thing. And I also felt that I needed to do more, that I couldn't just, to have the immigration victories that our communities need, I needed to go kind of to the top of figuring out how do we get this type of justice. And so, I've been in my role now a little over 3.5 years. And I think I stay in this work because, our state has been able to do some really kick-ass work and make some victories. But, for me, there's no end until every single community that we work with and represent really has that justice. And so I'm going to keep on, my team and I will keep on trucking until we get there.
Yep, keep on keeping on. And thank you all for all the work you're doing, your teams, all organizers and leaders out there who know this is their calling and are in this for the long haul. So I'm going to turn it over, come to you, Beth, ask a question. So I want to hear about how has the work that your partners in your table have done transformed the approach to civic engagement as well as the voting rights and representative democracy work in your state of Massachusetts?
That's a great question, Alexis. The first thing is that we really believe that democracy doesn't start and end on election day. We believe that democracy doesn't start and end with the ballot box. This is a year-round process of integrating grassroots organizing at a community level with state advocacy on policies that work for our people and leadership development to build a bigger and deeper bench of people who come from our communities to make transformative change. Right now, as I was saying earlier, the status quo isn't working for our people. And I think our partners have put together an agenda that that links together people's issues with finding affordable housing, with making sure that our families are able to stay together, that links fair districts and fair taxes all into a broader democracy agenda, because we know that this work isn't going to end on November 3rd. It might as well just be beginning on November 3rd. We know that it doesn't end when people feed their ballot into the machine or put it in the mail. So that's the agenda that we're moving together as a table to make Massachusetts a fairer place to live.
Thanks so much. And I think that really lifts up the work of our new strategic direction. And I think that all of our state tables and partners have been doing this year-round work, and we're putting a finer point on it, really redefining civic engagement. It's year-round organizing, year-round movement building, that day in and day out work. And that's why you need, right, what Beth is talking about, that lasting infrastructure. So thanks so much for lifting that up. Emily, coming over to you. So, the state of Nevada is well known for being a battleground state and has, a large BIPOC community, especially Latinx API population. So how do you approach a ground game, right, that centers tried and true tactics like the phone baking and canvassing, but is ensuring culturally specific tactics in order to be sure that you are building power with the communities you are engaging and serving in Nevada?
Yeah, I think the first step for us is having to listen. Like, we as a team, we're a staff of 23, and we represent the very much of the communities that we work with on a day-to-day basis, but we don't represent them all. And we have the skill set of how to organize, how do we use VAN, how do we use all of these different tools. But, for each particular community, it's very different. How you, within the API community here, we have a vastly diverse community, and how you organize in the Chinese community is completely different how you organize in the Filipino community. So I think it's having to sit down with our partners and really listen, like, what are the things that work? What do you like? How do you all meet socially normally? Like, how do you like what those particular kinds of things? And I think then figuring out how do we use those practices and implement them with a GOTV strategy or talking about a piece of legislation. And I think the other part of it is where we see that we don't have representation, we have to go out there and find that. And so recently, Nevada has 27 tribes. And so we have one of the largest Native American populations. And that's been a gap at the table for quite some time. And the reason why is because there weren't really any civic engagement arms. But what we figured out is that that was not going to happen just by day and night. We needed to go out there and figure out what were the community groups that were already doing, just organizing within their community, maybe just resources and things like that, and bring them in. And so we recently have brought in the Las Vegas Indian Center, that's just been a social services group, but has had a really big interest on engaging their community with civic engagement. So I think it's a combination of those two steps.
Thanks, Emily. And I think that you're really lifting up the importance of what is foundational to organizing. It's building relationships, it's listening, it is building like a true, authentic relationship and mutual trust. And then you can talk about, anything from the election to issues. And also thanks so much for bringing up Native Indigenous folks and how that was actually a gap, right, for your organizing in a state, and how you had to intentionally then build those relationships. And that's something across our network that we saw as a gap, and are continuing to learn from and grow and invest money and resources into Native Indigenous communities. And so we can be in deeper relationship and deeper partnerships. So Jasmine, coming over to you. So Pennsylvania, another battleground state, all eyes are on on Pennsylvania this year. How is your state using data and technology tools, and coupled with the principles of our theory of change in order to propel BIPOC communities in the state of Pennsylvania to not only have impact in 2020, right, in the 43 days until the election, but also in 2021 and beyond?
Absolutely. And for folks who know me know that I can talk about data, tech, and tools for like a day straight. So I'll keep it as brief as possible. So in Pennsylvania, as well as throughout the entire network, data, tech, and tools informs our work. I want to lift up what my colleagues have already named, and Alexis, what you have named. Ultimately, at the end of the day, our goal is always going to be about building power for BIPOC communities. And so that means that we need to strike a balance, right? We can't just be all data or all just tech and tools. Like, we need to strike a balance of what actually makes sense. A lot to what Emily was saying about there is no one size fits all for every community. It's just not possible. And it's not just by race and not just by ethnicity, it's also by geography as well. So the kind of simple sandwich of how we approach our civic engagement work at Pennsylvania Voice is really looking at the data as a way to help inform either our targeting or help inform our understanding of what the need is. What is the work that needs to be done? And then from there, we work on program design, right? And we figure out what program design, based on best practices, based on what has been proven to be effective, what is proven to work, in addition to the knowledge and the experience that our partners have of doing that work, their knowledge of their own communities, we develop a program design. And then from there, we can then name, well, what is the tech? What is the tools that we need? And especially in 2020, we've all had to adapt and evolve very quickly. And we've learned that there's lots of tools that we now need to utilize if we're going to be doing this work remotely or do this work in a safe way. But even before COVID, right? Like, we were already learning that and realizing that there is a lot of great organizing work that could be done even more efficiently, even better. We had the tools and technology to support the data tracking to support that. And so just a few examples to lift up. We have 4 coordinating programs in Pennsylvania. And they're all multi-layered, so always using different types of outreach. And with different types of outreach, that means that you need to have different types of tool. And depending on what you're talking to community members about, that's also going to inform what tools you need to use. So we've had a multi-layered census program that ran from November 2019 to the end of April 2020. We've been running a huge voter registration program from May until October 19th, which is our Pennsylvania deadline, so register to vote if you're not up to date on your current address in Pennsylvania. And all the while doing deep education on vote by mail, which is brand new to Pennsylvania this year, and a victory won by our partners in our voting rights work group last fall in 2019. And then, of course, good old-fashioned GOTV, because we can't stop there. And so these are all different things that we need to be talking to our community members about. And that means we need different tools. For census, we had a digital pledge card, so anyone could fill out the pledge card. But for vote by mail, we're using a dialer because we are actually reaching out to every single BIPOC person, voter, that we can find in the van this year. That's how awesome our partnership is. And so depending on the program, depending on who we need to talk to, depending how we need to reach out to them, we need to figure out the tools that we have. And so relational organizing tools, short codes, QR codes, texting tools, digital pledge cards, the whole shebang, we're using it in Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Jasmine. You're not lying. I mean, we could just, people out there, you want to know anything about data and technology, call Jasmine in Pennsylvania. She'll walk out with you. But I think she put a real good point, and like giving examples of how data and technology infrastructure is, is foundational to our work across the country, but is only a tactic and a tool, right? In our broader work to build power. And we really set out this year to make sure that we're meeting the needs of folks on the ground. And so thank you so much, Jasmine, for lifting all of that up. I have a question for all 3 of you, so feel free to jump in, whoever wants to answer. Is, as you all have been part of crafting this new theory of change. So how, this model, how will this theory of change model adapt to match this crucial needs to protect democracy in 2020 and also engage voters and communities around civic engagement in this year in 2021 and beyond?
I think our new theory of change model as an affiliated structure is absolutely crucial for the future of state voices. I think it's a model that puts people first and put states and communities first. I mean, 2020 is the best year for pulling in all of those new voters, all of those unlikely voters. We know those are not probably homeowners of single family homes in the burbs, right? We know that our new and unlikely voters are more likely to be Black voters, are more likely to be Indigenous voters, are more likely to be voters of color, young people, naturalized citizens, and more. And I think that, like Jasmine was lifting up with these voting rights reforms, this is actually a proof of concept year for us, right? That vote by mail works, that election day registration works. We have the ability to experiment with new tools, and we're able to put all of our people first in this tremendous year of opportunity and challenge where the stakes are really high. And so as we put states first, as we put communities first, and as we put people first, this is a major opportunity for making 2020 the groundwork and foundation that we need for our future success in 2021 through the next decade and beyond. And I'm really thrilled to work with all of you in this affiliated structure to make it happen.
I mean, I think Beth is right on, and I think the only thing that I would add is creating this theory of change for our affiliation. I think we're in 23 different states that are all completely different, but bringing this theory of change kind of aligns us all together to ensure that, yes, what may be happening in Nevada may be completely different than that's in Nebraska or Kentucky, but we're all, working collectively to ensure that we are bringing those victories for our communities all together. So it's been really exciting and I think very motivating as well.
And
thank y'all. Go ahead, Jasmine.
The only thing I want to add to that is that exactly what my colleagues said, and the theory of change has been put into practice because we've had no choice to do it in 2020. We have seen as a result of this pandemic just how what all of us as BIPOC people already knew, but now it's just so obvious and no one can turn away about how deep the oppression, how deep the injustice is, and how much BIPOC people are cast to the side systematically in this country. And so our partners have never stopped. Not once have they stopped doing the work. We just pivoted very quickly, but we've never stopped doing the civic engagement. And in addition to that, they never stopped organizing on the issues. They have only added to the issues that they're organizing on, because we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about people's literal lives, of whether they will be alive tomorrow, whether they will have a home over their head, whether they will have utilities as we go into the winter time, whether their kids will actually get an education and stay safe. We are fighting for survival now in expanding those relationships and deepening those relationships. That the work has been going, right? And it goes beyond the election.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jasmine. That was just so deeply felt, and a perfect segue into my last question. You say we will never stop, and AOC, said just recently after the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg that we are all tired. But this is what authoritarianism is supposed to do. It's supposed to wear you down until you give in. And you never give in. That's our number one job right now. And so, how do we not give up in this moment when things feel hopeless and when we're carrying so much from the weight of 2020?
I know it sounds corny, but it's because of love, right? It's the love of my baby girl, right? I want my child to grow up in a world that isn't on fire constantly and where she can actually chase her dreams. It's because of the love of my family. It's the love of my community, which comes in from all different races, all different immigration statuses, all different genders and sexuality. It's my love for the people around me and for my community that I am so deeply tired. I'm so deeply tired, but I fight for them.
Thank you, Jasmine. And, we are coming right up on time. And so I think that is the perfect place to leave it, is that it's about love. And so I couldn't have said it better myself. And I just think about the love that we have for who got us here, like our ancestors and the generations before us, and that we have to continue to fight for our generations after us. And that we were all in this moment for a reason. And that we are truly in a moment where we are ushering in change in the vision of the world that is centered on liberation, centered on freedom, centered on justice, and centered on love. So thank y'all so, so much for joining us today. I want to thank Miles. I want to thank Beth Wong, Emily Zamora, and Jasmine Rivera for just not only taking time to join us for today, but your brilliance for being a part of the reason why State Voices is as strong as it is today, and for all of your dedication to this work. And I'm just so appreciative and proud that I get to be in this fight with y'all. So thank y'all so much.
Right back at you.
Thanks. So that is the end of our first segment of our New Direction to Power series. We have, just over 40 days, 43 days until the election, and we have so much work to do. So I want to show some slides to close this out with some important reminders and action steps that y'all can take as you're leaving our discussion today. So as we heard from Kara, tomorrow is National Voter Registration Day. It's a day it's reminding us and everybody to take action and register to vote. So let's get busy and ensure that you're registered to vote. Make sure that your friends and loved ones are registered to vote. You can find out more about voter registration deadlines at www.vote.org. Also, thank y'all so much for joining us today, our virtual audience out there. Tune in to our next episode in our series on a week from today on Monday, September 28th at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We are also, please mark your calendars, we're also going to be hosting a virtual rally on next Friday, October 2nd, that is called People Powered. And we're going to have activists and leaders and influencers and celebrities who are going to be on there to really hype us up, give us our final, charge of action, the 30 days leading into the election. You can register for that virtual People Powered rally, Get Out the Vote rally at statevoices.org. And in remembrance of the notorious RBG, I leave you with one of her quotes: "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." Remember, this election is about our voices, and our voices have power. Thank you all, and see you soon.